Hey ACS 200, this is Donna Burke. I'm giving you a short video to kind of go over the main highlights of chapters 4 and 5 in our little textbook if you haven't had a chance to read it or just want it reinforced. And again, I really want you to do a little research on your own to go over whether or not learning styles is really a thing where somebody is predetermined to either be a visual learner or an auditory learner, or is multisensory, multimodal the way to go. Let's see what our textbook says. So in chapter 4, they talk about using all your senses to learn and remember. So the definition of multisensory is any activity that combines 2 or more senses in order to strategize to improve your learning, okay, to take in information and express it. Multisensory techniques are not the same as learning styles, okay? So it's saying that actually all of us can benefit from multiple ways of getting the information. And research is showing that learning styles may not really exist, and that teaching to quote-unquote learning styles may not be as effective as using multiple ways of getting the information to a student and having the student process that information. So the textbook talks about, if you take a look at some of the data, if someone took 2 or more senses, so if you only read your textbook, your percent of recall is 10%, okay? But if you read, say, and take notes using the sense of touch, okay, and taking notes from what you read, or sometimes actually learning about something, seeing something, but then also taking it apart, also hearing it, you can increase your recall by 50 to 85% if you combine more things than just the visual. That's pretty significant when you think about it. The power of sight can be really incredible in the learning process. So making sure that you're using things like visuals, pictures, graphs, any kind of visual representation of the information is going to improve your learning. One incredible visual representation are concept maps. So concept maps are ways to organize information into a visual, and it helps you actually reinforce relationships between concepts and understand the storyline from a visual perspective, and also can demonstrate cause and effect. So let's take a look at an example. This is an example of a concept map outline. So the main idea or concept that you're learning might be in the middle, and then the keywords or relationships can be between the concepts, can be outlined here. Things that are connected, you could draw arrows between. And this can really help, especially in courses that have a lot of material, a lot of terms, a lot of processes, especially things like biology, the sciences. This concept map tool really can help with psychology as well. Really any topic. The bottom line is that our brain is looking for connection, okay? And we want to create pathways in our brain. And if the more pathways you have can help you recall the information better. So multisensory elaboration. So creating stories, connecting things, new concepts to things that you already know. That will help you go back and be able to get that information. There's a phrase saying memories are at the mercy of our elaborations. And what that means is if we can elaborate on a concept and kind of move it from short-term memory to long-term memory by making associations with information we already know, storytelling, remember my renal system mnemonic device, you know, a phrase or a story or a tune that you already know, and you could connect it to this new information, you're more likely to be able to understand it and recall it at a later date. So when you deal with textbook reading, that is a lot of times that is really one mode, that's reading. So what can you do to make that a more multisensory experience? Well, one, there's a lot of textbooks that are on audio and available on audio. So that's an option too. So you're actually listening to it while you're reading it. That's actually really good. But then annotation is a great way to combine the physical act of writing something down that you're seeing as you're reading it making notes with what you're reading, underlining, highlighting. That promotes active reading. So you're not just going page after page going, what did I just read? You're actually taking notes with what you read. But be selective. I once saw a student highlight the entire page of a textbook. You might as well just read it again. So usually anywhere from 10% to 25% of the material you should be annotating or highlighting. Try not to overuse that because it won't be as effective. I have a handout to be able to give to you tomorrow, and these are some ideas on how to annotate: circling, making commentary on the side margins, using numbers or steps, showing relationships between things can be a great way to actively read and annotate your material. So chapter 5 is talking about how the brain is a pattern-seeking device, and you can assist this pattern-seeking device by helping the brain see the connections, making the connections between information. It's absolutely essential to learning. Our brains are constantly trying to make sense of what we're bringing into it. And so by connecting it to deeper learning, things that you know, concepts, going over them, that can really help in the learning process. Also, chunking information, seeing patterns in information, being able to like either use things such as, either alphabetizing numerically, putting information together is much more easy to recall at a later date. Because again, our brain wants to see patterns, okay? Our brain wants to know what's going to happen next. So seeing either similarities, proximity, cause and effect. Again, creating this kind of, sort of context of which this information could fit in is much more likely that we're going to be able to recall it at a later date. Another thing that's really important is putting information into your own language. It could be absolutely essential to your learning. So, explaining a concept to somebody else, that's a great study tool. So being able to kind of explain concepts, teach somebody else, because really, you don't really learn the material until you actually can explain it to somebody else. That's a really good test of whether or not you know the information. So try that as a tool, taking what you read and maybe writing little summaries for yourself and then putting it in your own language, and then also then be able to explain it verbally to somebody else. Textbooks are very difficult to read at times, and even our textbook has a pattern to it. So seeing if there's chapter titles, subtitles, subheadings, chapter summaries, usually in the back of a chapter. I often tell students to start with the chapter summary, warm up your brain to what you're going to be reading and talking about, and then take the chapters in small chunks, pages or two. Look for highlighted terms, write those out, make flashcards of them as you're reading. Write chapter summary notes as you're going along. But those bolded words and key concepts are there to help you and to help you make sense of the textbook information. So that's how I would approach textbook reading, because it definitely is not easy. And if you just use the textbook as one form of just seeing it visually, you're not going to learn the information as well as if you're in there and you're actively learning and you're pulling information out, or you're listening to it on audio tape too. That can really help your learning. So this is all leading up to your next major project, which is your learning assignment number 2, where you're going to take some of these learning tools we're going to be talking about in class, chapter notes, annotations, making outlines, doing a concept map, making flashcards, taking a study device or tool and applying it to a class or two or an assignment or two that you're having trouble with currently. So pick a class that you're kind of struggling in possibly, or an assignment that's coming up that you've been putting off, or you feel like you're going to have a hard time with it. Maybe it's a large paper and you need to start by writing an outline. Whatever it is, you're going to take the concepts we're talking about and you're going to apply them to something that you're currently dealing with in one or two of your classes. And then you're going to bring that device that you create, that study tool, to class when it's due and talk about it. So that's it. And if you haven't noticed, yes, my hair is purple. I'm taking this this love of Naz thing to a whole other level here. So I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow to see what you think of it. So see you in class tomorrow. Hope that you enjoyed this little summary of chapter 4 and 5.